My girlfriend's billionaire father just offered me $500,000 to break up with her. He has no idea I secretly have $8 million in my bank account. The check on the mahogany table was written for $500,000. $500,000. The paper was thick, cream-colored, heavy. It sat there between the crystal wine glasses and the half-eaten lobster bisque, looking less like a payment and more like a weapon. My girlfriend's father slid it across the polished wood toward me. He was a man who smelled of expensive scotch and old leather, wearing a Patek Philippe watch that ticked louder than my own heartbeat. He looked at me with a mixture of pity and disgust, the way you look at a cockroach right before you crush it. "Take it, Jack." His voice was smooth, cold. It didn't echo in the massive dining room. The velvet drapes swallowed the sound. "That's a house," he said softly. "That's a retirement fund. That is a life you could never afford on your own. Take the money, walk out that door, and let my daughter find someone on her own level." I sat there, frozen. The air in the room felt thin. I looked at the check. I looked at the zeros. He sat there, smug, waiting for me to take the bribe. He thought he knew exactly who I was. A broke freelancer. A charity case. A loser. He had no idea that I make more than that in passive returns every single year. And he had no idea what I was about to do next. To understand why I, a secret multimillionaire, was sitting there in a cheap blazer looking like a bum, we have to go back. My name is Jack. I am, by nature, a creature of habit. I crave constants in a world of variables. I drive a 2013 Honda Civic. Not because I can't afford a new one, but because I know the exact sound the engine makes when it turns over on a cold morning. I wear hoodies I've owned since my sophomore year of college because the cotton has finally broken into that perfect, soft texture that money can't buy. To the outside world, I look like a struggling freelancer who is barely making rent. And for a long time, that is exactly what I was. Then, there's Bella. We met 2 years before graduation. Bella was the campus princess. You know the type. She smelled like vanilla and expensive floral perfume. Her hair was always perfect, catching the light in a way that made her look like she was walking around with her own personal halo. Her last name was on the library building. She floated through life on a cloud of generational wealth and total, blissful obliviousness. She wasn't dumb. She just operated on a frequency that the rest of US couldn't hear. I remember the first time we studied together in the campus coffee shop. She looked at my laptop, frowned, and asked, in total seriousness, if we needed to turn off the Wi-Fi at night so the internet didn't get tired. I stared at her. I waited for the punchline. It never came. We were opposites in every conceivable way. I was the invisible guy in the back of the class, counting his pennies for an iced coffee. She was the girl everyone watched. But somehow, the magnets snapped together. We started dating in secret for almost a year. We hid in the back of the library. We met in parks at night. She was terrified of her parents finding out. She knew they would judge me. She knew they wanted her with a Trip or a Chad, someone who wore boat shoes and talked about their family's portfolio. So we existed in the shadows. Until March 2020. The world shut down. The news was a blur of red maps and panic. Bella's parents were stuck in Europe on a ski trip. They called her in a frenzy, the connection crackling. "Stay put, darling," her mother said. "It'll only be a week or two, just until the borders settle." A week or two. That's what we all thought. The dorms were closing. Bella stood outside her building with 2 massive Louis Vuitton suitcases, clutching a silk pillow. She looked small, terrified. The wind whipped her hair across her face. "I don't want to be alone, Jack," she whispered. Her voice was shaking. "The dorms are empty. It's too quiet. Come to my place," I said. "It's small. It's barely 600 square feet. It smells like old books and coffee. But I have toilet paper. And I have pasta." She moved in that afternoon. And that tiny, dark apartment became our entire universe. Those 2 weeks turned into a year. And honestly, it was the best year of my life. This is the part of the story that breaks my heart to think about now. Because stripped of the black card, stripped of the galas, stripped of the expectations of being an heiress, Bella changed. Or maybe, she just finally became herself. Living with Bella was like living with a very enthusiastic, very confused golden retriever. I remember the first week. The apartment was cramped. Her suitcases took up half the living room. But she never complained. Not once. She decided she wanted to be helpful. She wanted to do the laundry. I was working at my desk, trying to find freelance gigs, when I heard a scream from the bathroom. I ran in. The air was thick with the smell of citrus soap. There were bubbles everywhere. It looked like a foam party. "I wanted to make sure they were extra clean," she wailed, holding up a bottle of concentrated dish soap. "So I used the grease fighter stuff." We spent the next 3 hours scooping foam out of the hallway with plastic buckets, laughing until our ribs ached. She ruined 3 of my shirts. I didn't care. I would have let her ruin my whole wardrobe, just to hear that laugh. As the months dragged on, the secret of our relationship naturally fell apart. You can't hide a roommate during a global lockdown. It happened over a FaceTime call. Bella was talking to her parents, who were holed up in a chalet in Switzerland. I walked past the background carrying a basket of laundry, wearing nothing but sweatpants. Her mother gasped so loud the audio peaked. "Isabella, who is that man?" "Is that The scholarship boy. Bella didn't flinch. She just smiled and pulled me into the frame. This is Jack, Mommy. He's keeping me safe. He makes really good toast. Her parents were horrified, but they were thousands of miles away. There was nothing they could do. We were a bubble. We were official. We built massive blanket forts in the living room because we were bored. We dragged the mattress out of the bedroom and put it inside the fort, under a canopy of bedsheets and Christmas lights. We lived in there for days. It smelled like popcorn and warmth. We had fancy dinners. Since we were broke, I had about $25,000 to my name in loans and savings. We couldn't order delivery, so we ate instant ramen. But Bella treated it like Michelin star cuisine. She would set the scratch coffee table with paper napkins she folded into swans. She would boil the egg with the focus of a brain surgeon. She would chop the green onions. "Oh wow, Jack," she'd say, closing her eyes and taking a sip of the salty broth. "The texture of the noodle is exquisite tonight. Very al dente." She would look at me across that little table, her face glowing in the light of the TV, and she would smile. A real smile. Not the polite, society smile she used for her parents' friends. She was happy. She was happy with nothing. She was happy with me. There was a night in July. It was raining hard against the window. We were lying in the blanket fort, listening to the thunder rattle the glass. Her head was on my chest. I could feel her breathing. "I like this," she whispered. "You like the storm?" I asked. "No," she said. "I like us. I like this little box. It feels real. It feels safe." I kissed the top of her head. In that moment, I knew I was going to marry this girl. But while she was sitting on the floor drawing cartoons of us as superheroes, I was doing something else. I was staring at the cold blue light on my laptop screens. I was anxious. The world was falling apart outside. I saw the market going crazy. I saw panic. And where there is panic, there is opportunity. I decided to take a risk. I took my savings, my loan money, every cent I had, and I dove in. I shorted tech stocks right at the crash. I bought meme stocks before the hype exploded. I timed the crypto market with a precision that I still can't explain. It was a mixture of obsessive, sleepless math and pure, unadulterated dumb luck. Bella would see me stressed, clenching my jaw at the screen. She didn't understand what I was doing. "Are you winning the computer game?" she'd ask, bringing me a cup of tea that tasted like honey and lemon. "Ideally, yes," I'd say, rubbing my eyes. "That's good. Don't let the pixels beat you, Jack Jack." She would kiss my forehead and go back to reading her magazines. She was my anchor. By the time the restrictions lifted and the world started to open back up, I closed my positions. I looked at the final balance. $8,432,000. I sat there in my squeaky office chair, shaking. I refreshed the page 3 times. It was real. I was a multimillionaire. My first instinct was to turn around and scream, "Baby, we can buy an island." I stood up. My heart was hammering. I walked into the living room. Bella was zipping up her suitcase. Her parents had landed. The private jet was ready. "Daddy says he's sending a car for me in an hour," she said. She looked sad. She looked at our blanket fort, which was sagging in the corner. Back to reality, I guess. And those words stopped me cold. Back to reality. To her, the last year, the blanket forts, the ramen, the bad haircuts, that wasn't reality. That was a vacation. That was a quirky little interlude before her real life resumed. I didn't say anything about the money. I swallowed the secret. I helped her carry her bags downstairs. The moment she left that apartment, the air changed. Her parents reactivated the black card. The heiress returned. Suddenly, the girl who was thrilled by instant noodles was gone. She was going to brunches that cost more than my car. She was coming home with bags from Gucci and Prada. I felt the drift immediately. It was like watching a boat float away from the dock, and I didn't have a rope to pull it back. I made a choice then. I kept my lifestyle exactly the same. I kept the Honda. I kept the apartment. I kept the hoodies. Partly, this was because I hate change. But mostly it was because of a new, sick feeling in my stomach. A paranoia that grew every single day. Poverty tourism. That's what I convinced myself this was. I convinced myself that I was just her rebellion phase. She was dating the broke guy to annoy her dad. She was slumming it to feel like she had a genuine experience. And her family made sure I felt it. Since the relationship was now public, I was expected to show up. I was summoned to events. And each one was a calculated humiliation. The first time I met her parents in person after the lockdown was at their country club. The air smelled of chlorine and expensive perfume. Richard didn't shake my hand. He looked at my blazer, which was from Macy's, and gave a tight, pained smile. "So," Richard said, cutting into his steak, "Bella tells us you kept her entertained during the quarantine in that little apartment. We made the best of it," I said politely. "I can only imagine." Eleanor, her mother, sighed. She looked at me with wide, concerned eyes. It must have been so cramped. Like a submarine. "Tell me, Jack, are you currently employed? Or are you still finding yourself?" "I do freelance analysis," I said. "It pays the bills." "Does it?" Richard chuckled darkly. "Which bills?" "The internet bill. Certainly not a mortgage." I felt the heat rise in my neck. I looked at Bella, waiting for her to say something, to defend me. Bella just giggled. She was busy trying to balance a spoon on her nose. "Oh, Daddy, stop it," she laughed. Jack is a minimalist. Like that guy on Netflix who only owns one fork. It's a vibe. She didn't get it. She thought they were just making conversation. She didn't hear the venom. A few months later, it was a summer garden party. I pulled up in my Honda. The valet looked at it like I had handed him a bag of trash. I walked into the party. Richard was holding court with a group of his business partners. He saw me and waved me over. "Gentlemen," Richard announced loudly. "This is Jack, Bella's companion." The men looked me up and down. "Jack here drives a 2013 Civic," Richard said, swirling his drink. "He says it has character. I say it has a death wish." "Jack, tell them, how many times has the bumper fallen off?" The group roared with laughter. I stood there, humiliated. I looked for Bella. She was standing right there, holding a glass of champagne. It fell off twice. Bella chimed in cheerfully. "But Jack fixed it with duct tape. He's so handy. It's like living with MacGyver." Later, in the car, I snapped. "Bella, why do you let them talk to me like that?" I asked, gripping the steering wheel. She looked at me, confused. Her big eyes blinked slowly. "Like what, Jack? Like I'm a loser. Your dad literally mocked my car to his friends." "Oh, you're so sensitive," she sighed, resting her head on my shoulder. "Daddy just has a dry sense of humor. He's British, basically. He loves you. He's just quirky." Quirky. She called a man who despised my existence quirky. Christmas was the worst. I spent weeks finding a gift for her mother. I found a first edition of a book she claimed to love. It cost me $1,000, pocket change for me now, but I had to pretend I saved up for months. I gave it to Eleanor. She unwrapped it with 2 fingers. "Oh," she said, "a book. How quaint. Thank you, Jack. I suppose used things have certain charm." She set it aside on a pile of wrapping paper, like it was trash. "Mom," Bella said, "it's vintage. Smell it. It smells like old paper." "Yes, dear," Eleanor said, wiping her hands on a sanitizer wipe. "Delightful." Bella turned to me, beaming. "See? She loves it. She's just tired because the caterers were late." I felt like I was going insane. Bella wasn't malicious. She just refused to see the knife. She had this force field of sunshine that filtered out all the insults, leaving me to bleed alone. I realized then, I can't compete with this. Even if I told her I was rich, I'm not their kind of rich. And she would never understand how much they hated me. I decided I was going to break up with her. It felt inevitable. I was tired of being the charity case. I was tired of Bella making excuses for people who treated me like dirt. Which brings us to the birthday dinner. Richard's 60th birthday. The big one. I lay on the couch in my apartment, staring at a water stain on the ceiling. "I have a migraine, Bella. I can't go." She stopped applying her lip gloss. She walked over, looking like a movie star in a dress that shimmered like liquid silver, and sat on the edge of my lumpy couch. "You're clenching your jaw." "What?" "You only do that when you're doing math in your head, or when you're scared of my dad." She brushed hair off my forehead. Her fingers were cool. Her eyes were soft, and for a second, I saw the girl from the blanket fort again. "You don't have to do math tonight, Jack. And Daddy promised to be nice. Please. I need my emotional support human. Tripp is going to be there, and he keeps trying to explain NFTs to me." I looked at her. She looked so earnest. Even when she was being an airhead, she had this way of pulling me in. I sighed. "Fine. I'll go." But I made a promise to myself. I'll go. But if she defends him again, if she laughs off another insult, I'm done. I'm in it tonight. We drove to the estate in my Honda. The engine rattled the whole way, a constant, grinding reminder of where I stood in this world. We pulled up to the gate. The security guard actually sneered at the rust on my bumper before buzzing us in. We walked into the fortress. The air inside was cold. It smelled of lilies and floor wax. The chandeliers looked like they belonged in Versailles. Richard was standing by the fireplace with his wife, Eleanor. Richard is a shark in a bespoke suit. Eleanor is the kind of woman who smiles with her mouth, but never her eyes. "Happy birthday, Daddy." Bella squealed, running to hug him. He patted her back absently. His eyes locked on me immediately. "Jack," he nodded. "You made it. And you drove the lawnmower." I forced a smile. I handed him a bottle of wine. A $300 Cabernet. I'd carefully selected from a boutique vineyard. He glanced at the label, sniffed, and handed it to a waiter without looking at it again. "Put this in the kitchen. We can use it for the stew." My jaw tightened. Cooking wine. He just called a $300 bottle cooking wine. So, Eleanor drifted over, swirling her drink. The ice clinked against the glass. "Bella tells us you're still doing your freelance work. Any luck finding a career that pays?" "I do fine," I said stiffly. "I like the freedom." "Of course you do." Richard laughed. "No boss, no ambition. It must be very peaceful." He turned to Bella. "Honey, go say hi to Tripp. He just made partner of the firm. He drove here in his new Porsche." "Okay." Bella chirped. "I like Porsches. They look like beetles." She wandered off toward the bar. She left me alone with the sharks. Again, we sat down for dinner. The table was 20 feet long. Richard sat at the head, looking like a king on his throne. He waited until the soup was served to start the execution. "So, Jack," his voice boomed, cutting through the silence. "I've been crunching some numbers regarding you." The table went quiet. "Dad." Bella looked up from her bread roll. Be nice. I'm being nice, Isabella. I'm being realistic. He turned his cold gaze to me. My daughter has expensive taste, Jack. She requires infrastructure. You live in a rental. You drive a Hazard. I can smell the transmission fluid from here. It smells like failure. I gripped my spoon so hard my knuckles turned white. I waited. I waited for Bella to say, he's just quirky. He loves that car. I waited for the excuse. We were happy in the lockdown, Bella said quietly. We ate ramen. Ramen? Eleanor shuddered visibly. It's a wonder you didn't get scurvy, darling. You were playing house in a hovel. Jack put an egg in it, Bella said, as if that solved the socioeconomic crisis. And green onions. Stop talking about the ramen, Bella. Richard snapped. This isn't a game. This is your life. He reached into his jacket pocket. The sound of the zipper was loud in the silence. He pulled out the checkbook. I'm a businessman, Jack, Richard said, uncapping a gold pen. I believe in cutting losses. I believe in paying for value. He wrote quickly. The scratching of the pen against the paper sounded like nails on a chalkboard. He ripped the check out. He slid it across the mahogany. I looked down. $500,000. $500,000, Richard said. That is more money than you will see in a lifetime. Take it. Go back to school. Buy a house in the suburbs. Find a nice, simple girl who clips coupons with you. But leave my daughter alone. I looked at Bella. She was staring at the check. Her eyes were wide. She was doing the math. This is it, I thought. The bitterness rose in my throat, acidic and hot. She's realizing how much money that is. She's going to make a joke. She's going to say, wow, Daddy, that's a lot of shoes. I pushed my chair back. I was ready to throw the check in his face, tell him I was worth 10 times what he was, and storm out. A loud screech of a chair against the floor stopped me. No, it wasn't me. It was Bella. She was standing up. She wasn't looking at her phone. She wasn't looking at the ceiling. She was vibrating with rage. Her face was flushed pink. Bella, sit down. Eleanor hissed. Don't be dramatic. No. Bella's voice cracked, but it was loud. You think he's a loser? You think he's stupid because he doesn't have a trust fund? I am protecting you. Richard shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The silverware jumped. He is a leech, Bella. He is using you. He is not using me, she screamed. Tears were spilling down her face. He didn't even know who we were when we met. He let me live with him for free for a year. He shared his food with me when he had nothing. She grabbed my hand. Her grip was iron. Her palm was warm. You think he's poor? He's richer than you, Daddy. Because he actually listens to me. He doesn't treat me like a pet you can dress up. He explains things to me. He makes me feel smart. She pointed a shaking finger at him. Jack bought me a silver locket. It cost him everything he had. And I slept with it under my pillow every single night. Because he gave it to me. I don't care about your Porsche. And I don't care about your money. I froze. She slept with the locket? Under her pillow? After I saw her, wearing the diamond bracelet? Richard stood up. His face was purple. If you walk out that door with him, his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You are cut off. No allowance. No inheritance. You will be poor, Isabella. Do you understand? You will be nothing. The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Bella looked at the check. Then she looked at her dad. She wiped her nose on her expensive sleeve. Okay. Richard blinked. Excuse me. Okay. Keep your money. It makes you ugly. She grabbed the check. She ripped it in half. She threw the pieces into his lobster bisque. It made a wet splash that was the most satisfying sound I have ever heard. Let's go, Jack. We're going to get a McFlurry. She dragged me out of the room, leaving her family in stunned silence. We walked to the Honda in the dark. The gravel crunched under our feet. Bella held it together until we got inside the car. Then, she crumbled. She curled into a ball in the passenger seat and started sobbing. I ruined it, she choked out. I ruined everything. We're poor now, Jack. Like, really poor. We're going to have to eat the ramen forever. I sat there, stunned. She had just rejected $500,000. She had just given up millions in inheritance. For me. For the guy in the hoodie. It wasn't poverty tourism. She wasn't visiting my life. She was willing to live it. Bella. No. I have a plan. She interrupted, panic rising in her voice. I can work. I can fold clothes. I'm really good at folding. And I can sell my shoes. I saw a TikTok about selling feet pics. I can. Bella. Stop. I laughed, tears in my own eyes. You are not selling feet pics. I reached in the backseat and grabbed my laptop bag. I don't want to play computer games right now, Jack, she wailed. It's not a game. Look, I opened the laptop. I logged into the brokerage account. The screen glowed blue in the dark car. I turned it toward her. She squinted at it through her tears. Jack, why are there 2 commas? Is the website broken? No, Bella, I said, smiling so hard my face hurt. That's $8 million. She froze. She stopped crying. That's daddy money. No, I said. That's Jack money. I made it during the lockdown. While you were drawing cartoons, I was trading. She stared at me. You had this the whole time. I did. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was scared. I admitted, my voice shaking. I thought you were just visiting my life. I thought you were doing poverty tourism. I needed to know you loved me, not the money. She looked at me. Her expression softened. She reached out and touched my face. You idiot. I loved you when you had the mullet. She looked back at the screen. So, we don't have to sell my shoes. No, baby. You keep the shoes. We can afford the McFlurry. We can buy the whole McDonald's. We drove to the drive-thru. We ordered $50 of food. Bella called her dad. Isabella. Richard sounded smug on the other end. Calling to apologize? Reality hit you fast. No, she said, stealing one of my fries. I'm calling to tell you that Jack isn't broke. He has $8 million. He hid it because he wanted to make sure I wasn't shallow. Turns out, you're the shallow one. What? Richard stammered. That's impossible. He drives a Honda. It's a vintage Honda, she yelled. And we are going to be very happy. Goodbye. She hung up and threw her phone in the back seat. That was 2 years ago. We finally upgraded. I bought a house. A farmhouse with a big garden because I still hate change, but Bella wanted space for a dog. I finally traded the Honda for a Porsche, mostly because Bella insisted the Honda was a safety hazard after the bumper fell off on the highway. Bella kept her promise about working, but she didn't get a job at the mall folding clothes. She decided to become the CEO of the house. And let me tell you, she works harder than I do. She treats homemaking like an Olympic sport. She learned how to cook, like really cook. She makes beef Wellington on Tuesdays just because she can. She took gardening classes and now grows her own vegetables. She keeps the house looking like a magazine cover, smelling of fresh bread and lavender, but still cozy enough for us to build a blanket fort when it rains. She still loses her keys. She still asks me if fish get thirsty. But she runs our lives with love and precision. Last week, I came home from a meeting, and she greeted me with a perfect souffle and a martini. How was the market? She asked, kissing my cheek. Wiggly lines, I said. Good, she smiled. Dinner is ready. I'm the luckiest man alive. I have $8 million, a Porsche, and a girl who is willing to lose everything just to stay by my side. If you find someone who loves you when you have nothing, keep them when you have everything.